Switch, one thought that changed everything. Part 1. Stuck on repeat. Jackson Hayes sat in his small apartment in Cleveland, Ohio, staring blankly at the peeling paint on the ceiling. The silence was loud. His phone lay face down on the floor, notifications piling up from his boss, his bank, and his mother, all unread. He was 33, jobless for 6 months, divorced, and suffocating in $42,000 of debt. He had a degree in business, a decent resume, and years of experience, but something had snapped inside him. He was surviving, but not living. And deep down, he knew this wasn't about money. It wasn't about luck. It wasn't even about his past. It was about his mindset. Part 2. The Voices We Believe. Jackson remembered his father's voice from childhood. "You're not leadership material, Jackson. You're just average. Be safe." He had believed that voice. He carried it into adulthood. He wore it like a name tag. So when layoffs hit his company and others rose up with confidence, Jackson shrank. He didn't fight back. He froze. Every rejection email after a job application felt like a confirmation of that voice. "You're just average." He wasn't lazy. He wasn't dumb. He was simply trapped in a mindset built by doubt, fear, and childhood programming. Part 3. A Stranger in the Cafe. One rainy afternoon, Jackson sat in a small local cafe downtown. He ordered black coffee and stared out the window. On the next table, an older man, gray beard, clean suit, warm smile, noticed him. The man introduced himself as Mr. Lennox, a retired business psychologist who once coached Fortune 500 CEOs. His energy was magnetic. "I don't mean to intrude," he said, "but you look like someone who's ready to flip the switch." Jackson chuckled bitterly. "The only switch I know is turning off the light and going back to bed." Mr. Lennox smiled. "It's never the darkness that defeats us. It's the belief that we don't deserve the light." That line hit hard. Part 4. The One Thought. Over coffee, Mr. Lennox asked Jackson one question. "What's one thought, just one, that if you believed it fully, your entire life would change?" Jackson didn't answer immediately. Mr. Lennox leaned in, voice steady. "The difference between the people who break through and the ones who break down is usually just one thought. Not a million actions, not 1,000 plans, just one powerful belief." Jackson paused. "Maybe that I am not broken, that I still matter." Lennox smiled. "There it is." Part 5. The Inner War. The next morning, Jackson tried something radical. Before brushing his teeth, before checking his phone, he looked in the mirror and whispered, "I am not broken. I still matter." It felt awkward, fake, but he kept saying it. By day 7, it felt like a spark. By day 14, it became a flame. By day 21, he believed it. His mind fought him. Every doubt, every fear screamed louder. But he kept repeating that one thought: "I still matter." It wasn't magic. It was reprogramming. Part 6. Momentum over motivation. Jackson stopped chasing motivation. He started chasing momentum. He woke up at 6 a.m., wrote down 3 things he was grateful for, applied to 5 jobs, learned new skills on YouTube, and took cold showers just to feel alive. He created structure, not just goals. He didn't wait to feel ready. He acted anyway. He reminded himself daily, motivation is a mood, momentum is a mindset. And day by day, his actions started rewriting his identity. Part 7. The test comes fast. 3 weeks later, a phone call came. An interview. It wasn't glamorous, an assistant manager position at a logistics company, but it was something. He wore his old suit, tied his best knot, and repeated the thought before walking in: "I still matter. I bring value." During the interview, he didn't try to be perfect. He was honest, focused, and alive. He spoke with conviction, not about what he had lost, but about what he had learned. He got the job. But more importantly, he didn't feel like the same man anymore. Part 8. From survival to leadership. Within 9 months, Jackson had moved from assistant manager to operations lead. Not because he was the smartest, not because he never failed, but because his mindset was untouchable. He had learned to replace panic with planning, replace fear with small action, replace doubt with one strong belief. Coworkers noticed, his boss noticed, and soon he was mentoring younger employees. The man who once doubted his own worth was now helping others see theirs. Part 9. The Full Circle Moment. 2 years later, Jackson returned to that same cafe. Different suit, different bank account, different heart. And sitting at the same table was a 20-something kid, hoodie on, tears in his eyes. Jackson sat down, ordered 2 coffees, and said, I don't mean to intrude, but you look like someone who's ready to flip the switch. The kid looked up, confused. Jackson smiled and asked, What's one thought, just one, that if you believed it fully, your entire life would change? Part 10, The Real Switch. Mindset doesn't change in a day, it changes daily. Jackson never became a millionaire. Recap, he didn't get on TV or go viral, but he woke up every day with direction, with identity, with purpose. He stopped letting the world tell him who he was. Instead, he chose who he believed he was, and everything changed. Part 11, The Unexpected Mentor. Jackson had no idea how his small cafe conversation would become a ritual, but it did. Every Sunday he came back, not always to find someone, but to remind himself he wasn't here just to grow, he was here to give. One afternoon, a young woman named Nina sat 2 seats away. She looked angry, not sad, but internally boiling. She stared at her untouched coffee like it had offended her. He hesitated, but then spoke. Sometimes it's not the coffee, it's the storm inside. She looked up, surprised. Jackson smiled. You look like someone who's at war with her thoughts. Nina blinked, then nodded slowly. How'd you know? Because I've fought that war too, and I only started winning when I changed the general giving me orders. That line broke something open in her. They talked. For 2 hours. He didn't give advice, he shared his story, his one thought. By the end, she asked quietly, So, what was the switch? He whispered, I stopped asking if I was good enough and started acting like I already was. Part 12, New Levels, New Devils. Life wasn't magically easy. In fact, as Jackson climbed higher, new demons appeared. At work, not everyone liked his rise. Some coworkers whispered, He's just lucky. He's faking confidence. He'll fall eventually. For a brief moment, Jackson almost believed them, but he remembered something Mr. Lennox once told him. When your mindset levels up, the world sends tests to see if you're serious. So he responded not with anger, but with results. When coworkers mocked him, he delivered projects early. When his boss tested him with tough assignments, he stayed calm under pressure. When the old doubts crept back at night, he repeated his anchor belief. I am not broken. I still matter. He understood now. Self-doubt doesn't vanish. You just stop feeding it. Part 13, A Letter to His Former Self. One night, Jackson stayed late at the office. Everyone had left. Rain tapped the windows gently, and the silence brought reflection. He opened his laptop, created a new document, and wrote, Dear me, the old me. And what followed was a raw, unfiltered letter. You thought you were finished. You weren't. You thought being rejected meant you were worthless. It didn't. You thought love lost meant you'd never feel again. But you've grown. You love again, first yourself. You believed one childhood voice over your inner voice. But guess what? Yours is louder now. You are not broken. You never were. The world tried to dim you, but your light, it waited, it watched, and now it shines. Keep going. He printed it, folded it, and the next Sunday he slipped it under the napkin at that cafe for someone else to find. Part 14, The Collapse Before the Climb. Just when Jackson felt invincible, life punched him in the gut. His company was acquired. New leadership, new management. He was demoted. Suddenly, the guy who had led meetings was now taking notes for someone younger, ruder, and far less competent. His old thoughts returned like ghosts. See, you're still average. You peaked. It's over. For 2 days, he didn't eat, didn't return texts, didn't even journal. Then, he remembered Nina and the others. What would he tell them? That setbacks cancel progress? That confidence was fake? No. He stood up, shaved, put on his best shirt, and whispered again, I still matter. And he walked back into that office with zero bitterness. He began again, not from scratch, but from experience. Part 15, The Mentor Becomes the Leader. 3 months later, HR asked him to train new hires. They said, You have the mindset we want others to adopt. It wasn't a title. It wasn't a raise. It was something deeper, influence. Jackson led weekly sessions called The Inner Switch. He told stories not about success, but about fear, shame, change, growth. Young employees listened, wide-eyed. Some cried, some laughed, all transformed. He gave them journals, blank pages, and asked them to write one sentence. What's the one thought that would change everything if you truly believed it? One guy wrote, I'm not stuck, I'm in training. Another wrote, I am not my father's anger. Another simply wrote, I am allowed to begin again. Jackson smiled. The switch was spreading. Part 16, The Legacy of the Switch. Years passed. Jackson published a small book, One Thought, a Mindset Manual. It never hit bestseller lists, but it changed lives. He wasn't famous, he wasn't viral, but he mattered. He'd walk into coffee shops and sometimes see his quote painted on walls. You are not broken. You never were. He'd get emails from strangers saying, your story made me stay alive one more night. He kept going, quietly, powerfully. And one day, standing at a leadership conference, facing 800 faces looking up at him, he closed with one final message. You don't need to fix your whole life today. You just need to switch one thought and let that thought lead you forward, one brave step at a time.